Hey everyone, Kyle here from goatfilmreviews.com, and this is the first episode of the Goat Film Reviews show in its complete version here. So I'm here to talk some films with you. I'm here to shoot the shit a little bit and just kind of get my knowledge out and kind of just burn off my frustrations with what's going on in the world right now. How am I doing? Let's start off with that. I'm getting by. I'm definitely keeping busy. There's lots of stuff going on in the world, which it's very serious and it's difficult for a lot of us to stay at home. I myself, I have a couple of side hustles that are considered essential work, so I have been out and about a little bit, working as safe as I possibly can be, but working a little bit less every day and just trying to maintain my sanity amongst all that too. The wife's doing great, or as great as she can be. She works in healthcare, so she's dealing with a lot of the brunt of what's going on here. Not as close as some, but like definitely, it's stressful. Emotionally, reach out to your healthcare providers and healthcare workers because they are in the thick of it right now. And anybody who tells you that this mess is not that serious, they're wrong. Because she's a rock star and she's keeping up with that. So, how are the cats doing? The cats might come in and out. I don't really know how it's going to work with that today. So, Goku's doing fine. My 6-year-old black cat's doing just fine. My little one, my 3-year-old Spikey, he got sick earlier today. I've never seen a cat projectile vomit before, but that's a story for another time. So, what's the show going to be about? So basically, I'm going to try and pick a major topic to talk about every episode, then run through a couple of news pieces, whatever I have time for, and then end off with just kind of what am I watching right now, what am I reading, am I doing anything of import, and then just kind of end off the show with some plugs there. So hopefully not take up too much of your time, and stick with me. This will be kind of fun. So big story I want to talk about today, because this thing is it's wrapped up in what's going on in the world right now, and that is this whole fight between Universal Studios and the theater chains, or maybe I guess I could group them all under NATO, the North American Theater Owners. This is insanity. I mean, it's absolute insanity what's going on, and I'll try my best to recap as much as I can because a lot's happened. When I originally wrote down the notes for this episode, it hadn't gone as far as it has right now. So I've got some stuff pulled up here I want to talk about. So initially, all these studios had to shut down production. We get it, theaters had to close down, but studios still have a lot of films that are just in the can waiting to go out. And they have to figure out ways to release them. And it's kind of, we get that. That's understandable. And I think NATO, the North American Theater Owners, understood that as well. So you had a lot of studios going to speak to them about like, hey, here's what our plans are. Here's what we need to do. Plans were being made as best as they could. Studios have to be able to make money, and they have product ready to go out. I understand that. So things like, trying to shift films like The Way Back to streaming earlier. Birds of Prey went to streaming earlier. The Invisible Man went to streaming earlier. The Hunt, which had just opened before this mess, went to streaming. Onward got switched to streaming and then went to Disney+. Like, studios had plans in place, like, here's what we have to do. And I think because of that, the theaters were understanding and they knew what was going to happen. So it's one of those things, like, North American theater owners knew this was something that just had to be done. And they appreciated the conversation, and they allowed this to happen because they have a very strict policy, and I believe it's a 3-month policy. Studios have to let that film be able to be shown in theaters for 3 months before they can release it. That's why you don't see any, like, direct-to-video films show up for a week at theaters and then get gone. That's why a lot of streaming services don't get the rights to put their films in theaters, because theater doesn't want that. They don't want you to be able to have a week where no one goes to see your movie and then put it on the streaming service, what you're already paying for anyway, and then just have a wasted theater for a week. So what it kind of boils down to is all these studios were making plans, making agreements, and the North American theater owners are pretty understanding about that. Then comes Universal. Universal did not speak with NATO at all, to my knowledge, before announcing that they were releasing Trolls 2, Trolls World Tour, I believe it's called, direct-to-video streaming, and it would not even have any time in theaters. Not pushed back, released as usual, put in theaters. And I believe NATO was quoted with a really long answer to this, but the phrase "we will not forget this" appeared. And I think that's pretty tantamount. I mean, we know that film studios cannot make a lot of money on streaming. They're basically just trying to minimize losses at this point. So Trolls 2 came out. I think last projected I heard was as of today was like 99 million was taken in. I think the studio gets 77 of that. But this is like on a 90-some million dollar budget. This film will lose money. I think they have a Hulu streaming deal as well where they're going to make some of it back. But like this film will lose money, and it will. And considering the first Trolls movie made $300+ million at the box office, this movie is a disappointment. And I don't know why they didn't just. I mean, you have to release your films. I get it. But I don't know if it's the smartest move to release something like this that I think would have made a lot of money. So all that kind of stuff comes out. Universal's pretty proud of themselves. They're happy with the release that they have and minimizing their losses or some secret money that they must be bringing in from it. And they said that as soon as theaters reopen, we expect to release movies on both formats, referring to digital releases. And this was a $20 digital release, as well as in theaters. So that sparked a whole thing because that is in complete breach of this agreement that they have with the studios and the theaters to release films on this 3-month window. So the AMC Theaters chairman, Adam Aron, who is dealing with a lot right now trying to keep his company from going under, he was very upset about this 90-day window being broken and said, it is disappointing to us, but Jeff's comments as to Universal's unilateral actions and intentions have left us with no choice. Therefore, effective immediately, AMC will no longer play any Universal movies in any of our theaters in the United States, Europe, or the Middle East. He referred to it not some hollow or ill-considered threat. Adam Aron. So shots were fired. Shots were definitely fired. Universal Pictures answered back by saying, well, our goal in releasing Trolls World Tour on PVOD was to deliver entertainment to people who are sheltering at home while movie theaters and other forms of outside entertainment are unavailable. Based on the enthusiastic response to the film, we believe we made the right move. In fact, given the choice of not releasing Trolls World Tour, which would not only have prevented consumers from experiencing the movie, but also negatively impacted our partners and employees, the decision was clear. So this was kind of their way of saying, like, hey, we did this for the people and not to make money. If you did it for the people and not to make money, you wouldn't have dropped it with a $20 price tag on it. I'm just going to say that right now. You wanted to make as much money as you could, and that's respectable. That's what you would do. But you didn't do this for the people. You did this for the money. So kind of getting all over that, Regal Cinemas, or Cineworld, I believe it's called, which owns Regal Cinemas, came out and kind of agreed. They said, you know what, we're going to stand by that too. If you do this, if you try to release a film with same day video release, we will not show it in our theaters. And I think, look, here's the bottom line. You screwed up, Universal. You gotta backwalk off this, and you gotta get yourself off the ledge, because this is an incredibly dumb idea, Universal. I know you're listening. It's we're a small video channel right now, but I can hear you. And I can hear you and your ears just perking up at the thoughts of me telling you this, Universal. You've got to stop this. You've got to back it up. And you've got to understand that you will not make money. If Fast 9 comes out next April and it's not in AMC and it's not in Regal and it's not in any of the North American theater owners' theaters, which is all of them, you will not make any money releasing that on home video. There's another thing they're forgetting too. Trolls World Tour came out in the middle of a shelter-in-place pandemic. And it brought in $77 million for them. This movie made the most it could possibly make by having families shut indoors. I'll tell you right now, I know a lot of people I've spoken to that watched Trolls World Tour. They rented it because it was something to keep their kids busy. It wasn't done because they thought the film was going to be good. It's just sometimes you got to get the kids and you got to shut them up. And that's what made this movie so much money. It's the same reason people watched Frozen 2 80 times when it went on Disney+. It is not because of the product. And I'm not going to say that the movie is good or not good. I didn't watch it myself. I refuse to spend $20 to rent a movie. I won't do it. I spend less than that to purchase them. And I watch them a lot. So I will not spend $20 on that. I just won't. But to think that you won't need them when Halloween Kills comes out in October, because I'll let you know right now, that film could do pretty well on VOD. That film will do gangbusters if it is in a theater. Even if that theater is half full, even if that theater has a max occupancy, that movie will make money. And you are foolish to think that it won't. So what it boils down to for me is Universal had an opportunity when they screwed up with Trolls 2 to backpedal. They had an opportunity to say, you know what, we're sorry, this was a bad judgment call. We weren't thinking about the relationship that we have with theaters. We'll never let it happen again. They could have said that. They didn't. Now they have another opportunity. And this one is all the more pressing. Do not piss off the theaters. Because for one thing, the theatrical exhibition is it's an experience. It's an experience to go to the movie theater. And I know a lot of people only go like 4 or 5 times a year. When theaters are up and packed and running, I'm there like 2 to 4 times a week. And every single time I get a chance to go to a movie, I perk up. And I am so excited to be a part of that experience and to go see the movies. So it boggles my mind that Universal thinks for a second that they can make money doing this. And that no one will seemingly have a problem, which I cannot understand or fathom why. So Universal, get a new PR person and backpedal this as best as you can, because you need theaters. Theaters need you. It's a relationship that you need to keep fostering, and you cannot afford to push them off right now. So I'm just going to tell you that right now. What are your thoughts, guys? Are you like me? Are you an AMC A-list person who was pretty upset that AMC theaters said they weren't going to show Universal movies? I was pretty much like that, and I then looked into it a little bit more, and I found out, okay, they're not saying that. They're saying for each individual film, this is how they will judge it. If you release it on home video, day and date, we will not put it in theaters. So I still think we're going to get those big films in theaters. I think Universal's smart enough to backpedal. They want to make their billions. But are you like me? Are you concerned? Or do you think AMC made the right call? Do you think NATO made the right call? Or do you side with Universal? Do you side with NATO? Let me know your thoughts below. I'm really curious to see like how the breakdown works here. But I think the more films we get, the better. But this is not the logical way to do it, because if Universal pushes forward with this, Fast and the Furious will be a done franchise, because they just wouldn't be able to afford to keep making those big budget movies, because it will not work on home video release, at least not in its current state. So there you have it, guys. That's my big story of the week: Universal versus the theaters. I want to hear your thoughts about it. Let's get into some of these other stories, though, while we still have some time here today. First of all, so we kind of talked about this in the big story, but the theaters chains that have been like pushing some movies onto digital, and like what my thoughts are on that, because it's curious to see here. There's a lot of things that have been shuffled around on the release schedule. So let's cover a couple of these movies here. Paramount Pictures had The Lovebirds that was going to be released on April 3rd. That will now be going to streaming on Netflix. So The Lovebirds will be streaming on Netflix. I actually kind of liked the trailer for this one. I don't know. I was kind of mixed on it the first time I saw it, but it showed up in front of every film I saw for about 3 or 4 weeks. And I kind of grew to like it. The wife was kind of a fan of it too, and it's tough to get her interested in going to the theater with me. So that's always a win. But I kind of like the trailer for The Lovebirds. I will be excited to see this one when it hits streaming. We talked about Universal's Trolls World Tour going to VOD on when it was supposed to come out April 10th. April 17th release for My Spy. Now this is one I'm not gonna lie to you. I've seen it multiple. I've had a lot of early screening passes for this movie, and I've not gone to any of them. And it's not like some sort of thing where I'm trying to pick on the movie or not. I actually heard it was pretty good, but just the trailers have looked terrible. And I don't think Dave Bautista's got leading man talent yet. It's not a slight against the guy. He just hasn't had enough practice. I didn't really care much for Stuber, but I liked him in his like smaller level work. I liked him when he was in Guardians. I think he was pretty solid in Spectre. I think he was great in Blade Runner 2049. He needs to work on his craft and elevate himself before he can lift a movie by himself. Because Stuber, he was kind of the star of that. I mean, he had Kumail Nanjiani as well, but Stuber just didn't work. And part of it was that he was just not a very interesting lead. So, yeah, not too interested in My Spy, but that film will be releasing on Amazon Prime for streaming as well. Lionsgate had a film called The Quarry that was going to come out April 17th. That's going to VOD. Warner Brothers had Scoob, which was going to come out May 15th. That is going to VOD as well. And I think that one's got an interesting price point too, because it was $20 to rent, but $25 to own. And I think it's trying to push people to say like, hey, maybe I'll just spend the extra $5 and own it. Scooby-Doo is a nice property though, and I think releasing these films is good for them. I think this could net some money for a film that I think would have been in the crowded area in May. I don't think this film made too much. Artemis Fowl will be coming out on Disney Plus. That was originally streeted for May 29th. That film did not light up the world with its first trailer, and I think the first trailer was like a year and some change ago, and they pushed around the release date. It doesn't look very interesting, and I'm sad to say that because Kenneth Branagh is great. The King of Staten Island from Universal, that's Judd Apatow's new film. That was going to come out on June 19th. That will also be going to VOD. So a lot of shuffling around with this whole COVID-19 thing. It's been kind of crazy. What are my thoughts on it? I mean, the streaming ones, I'll watch those, but I'm not going to drop $20 on them. Maybe they'll win me over when I get bored enough, but there's lots of old catalog films that I'm getting into, and I can't see myself dropping the $20 on it. I'm sorry to say. I just think it's too high of a price point. I don't have people that are going to watch it with me. If I spend that money, that's me spending that money. That's a month of my A-list. Like, come on. You gotta be realistic here. Sorry, it's not. As far as these films go, I think the family films make sense because you do have a lot of families stuck inside that need something to watch. And I do think you'll get something to put our kids and ourselves in front of for a quiet night audience. And I think that would work. So I think the Trolls World Tour thing, I can see that one, of course, making money. The Scoob thing, I can see making money. I could see Artemis Fowl doing some good traffic on Disney Plus, but again, it's not going to make any money because it's just going to a streaming service, and no one's going to pay money for Artemis Fowl on Disney Plus. No one new is going to join Disney Plus for that. Same thing with the Lovebirds. Same thing with My Spy. No one's joining these streaming services for these films. So that's my thoughts on that. The Girl Who Loved Tom Gordon is a novel by Stephen King, originally to be directed by George A. Romero, but I'm now seeing information from Deadline. Let me just read this press release here. Village Roadshow Pictures has optioned Stephen King's psychological horror novel, The Girl Who Loved Tom Gordon, which will be adapted for the screen by Christy Hall, the co-creator and executive producer of the Netflix series I Am Not Okay With This. That was from Deadline. So pretty exciting stuff. That's one of the Stephen Kings, actually, it's been elusive to me so far. I have not gotten a chance to read it, but I hear pretty good things about it. I would have really liked to see George A. Romero direct the film. Of course, the late, great George Romero will not be doing that. And I did not get a chance to see I'm Not Okay With This, but I think any opportunity you can get to see more Stephen King on the big screen, we're in kind of a boom right now for it, too. The It films did very well. Pet Sematary, I think, broke even. I think it made a little bit of cachet, but Dr. Sleep kind of, from a creative standpoint, was amazing. It just didn't make the money that it was supposed to make, and I think that's really disappointing. It's kind of boiling down to the Stephen King films have been really great of the last couple of years, and TV shows as well, but have they made money? Not as much as they should have, not as much as we would have liked. So I guess it kind of boils down there. Hopefully his name recognition will bring some more people into this one, but it's a more obscure title. It's not as really well discussed as far as, like, if you heard The Girl Who Loved Tom Gordon, you're not immediately thinking Stephen King. Or at least the average film goer is not. All right, Now You See Me 3 has a new writer, Eric Warren Singer, who wrote Only the Brave and American Hustle. Will be writing this third film. I never saw the first two, to be honest. I didn't think they looked that good. I honestly was surprised that there was even a sequel coming out, but it is kind of a franchise that has some interest. So I think this would have been a great idea to announce within a year of that second film's release. I think now it's not going to do well. If this movie actually gets made and comes out, it is not going to make a lot of money. The original two did quite well for themselves, but again, it doesn't seem to me that people are clamoring for a Now You See Me 3. And if you don't call it Now You 3 Me or Now You See Me, Now You Don't, then you just missed out on that marketing right there. So take that one. That one's free from me. One last thing I want to talk about from Storywise today is the passing of, I believe it's Irfan Khan, Bollywood legend, and he's appeared in a lot of American films as of late, especially, and passed away, 53 years old. He was admitted to the ICU and just didn't come back out. Non-COVID related death, as far as I've been aware. I just want to talk about a couple of films that I remember him from. I'm not a big fanboy on the Bollywood scene. It's not that I have anything against it. I just haven't really fleshed out my portion and watched a lot of films in that area. So I'm going to talk a bit about the films that I have seen with Irfan Khan and ask you guys to give me your thoughts on them as well. So Slumdog Millionaire won Best Picture. He does a really great job in that film, and I think he's a very striking performer in that film. Definitely captivates the screen and stuff. I know Jurassic World, we kind of saw him as kind of being the takeover version of John Hammond from Jurassic World. He gets that great sequence where he's in the helicopter being chased when all hell's broken loose on the island, which is kind of cool. He's one of those guys, you see him, he's instantly recognizable, and he can be a friend or a foe, but he's always engaging. He's got very serious eyes. I always found myself drawn to the visual aspect that his eyes bring to the table. He's a very, very strong actor in that way. Life of Pi, he was the adult version of Pi telling the story. Just able to, framing device-wise, he doesn't, you have to kind of go off of what you can go off of, and I think he holds that pretty strongly. Amazing Spider-Man, again, probably one of the strong points in an otherwise weak movie. I'm not a big fan of The Amazing Spider-Man. It's fine, but it's just the Spider-Man story over again with, Willem Dafoe traded out for Rice Ifans. But he was strong in it. He was good in it. And I think that's what it is. He's one of those character actors in America that just really captivated the screen when he was on, and just a legend elsewhere, too. Like, he's just really sad to see him passing away at 53, way too young, this loss here. So I want to know your thoughts. Let me know your ideas. What do you think about Irfan Khan? Do you have a favorite film of his, a favorite character? Drop that comment down below. I'm really interested to hear your thoughts on that. All right, guys, so those are our stories for the day. Let's talk a bit about stuff that I watched, stuff that I've been a part of here. So, all right, let's talk about my last week here. So, again, not a whole lot of new stuff coming out. It's not a whole lot of stuff I've been really involved in. I was watching, I'm kind of going through some classic Three Stooges films, stretching my curiosity on that. So I watched this Ants in the Pantry one, which was really funny. And then later on, I think it was Sunday morning, I wanted to kind of get into a horror mood. So I watched Apollo 18. It was a found footage, 70s style found footage film about the, canceled Apollo 18, which actually wasn't canceled. They went to the moon and they found something horrifying there. Wow. For a movie that sounds so cool and is shot very well, because this is 70s style NASA footage, found footage film. It looks great, and it's just boring. It is so boring. And I think the film comes in at like 80 minutes, and it was incredibly boring. Like, I lost my enthusiasm about 25, 30 minutes in, and I just could not get myself to the finish line fast enough. So Apollo 18 was a pretty big loss for me. A visually interesting found footage film, had a cool idea that really could have become something better, and it just went nowhere. Very disappointing. Apollo 18 there. I also got caught up on Castlevania. The wife wanted to watch Tiger King, so we got Netflix this last month, and I've been kind of trying to cut my streaming services down for a little bit, so I'm not just spending a ton of money and watching like 2 things a month on streamers. So I got caught up on Castlevania. I'd been all the way through season 2, and I thought the story kind of had an ending there, and then season 3 came along and basically jump-started the whole show again. I'll say this about Castlevania. It's visually gorgeous. It's really great animation. I think the voice work is great. I think the story itself is pretty dang cool. I just don't know if it's executed writing-wise as captivating as I wanted it to be. And every season that becomes apparent to me is like I get a little lost in the hustle and bustle of the random characters. Like, I'm more interested in my big characters, and I feel like people don't get introduced very well. And there's a lot of similarities between some of our ancillary characters that make it a little hard to dive through. This is definitely a show that works better as a binge, but all 3 seasons I didn't really feel like binging. Like, I'd watch an episode, come back the next day. It just didn't captivate me and really draw me in the way I wanted it to. And I'll keep watching it because I think it's a good show. It's just not great. It's not exemplary to me. I just think it's good. I also I got the trial for Quibi. Thank you, Quibi, for that. Quibi's a weird streaming service. I don't know. I think after the 90 days, I think they might lose me for a while. But if they can catch me with some really interesting movies and chapters, if you guys don't know Quibi, it launched in early April, and the whole idea is that every episode of this streaming service is less than 10 minutes. So they have different versions of it. Like, they have actual competition shows. I'm going to talk about one of those that I finished this week. They also have things like what they call movies in chapters, which is basically like limited series, but every episode is like 8 to 10 minutes. Put them all together and you have a movie at the end, pretty much. It's interesting because it's kind of like having a chapter book, really, because each episode does end on a somewhat cliffhanger-y feeling where you want to see what happens next. And I think they do pretty well with that, but haven't finished any of the movies and chapters yet. Survive is one I've started, but I can't really talk about it yet because I'm not done watching it, and I really don't want to give my thoughts on it until I'm done with it. Dismantled is the show that I finished on there because it was very easily consumable. Some episodes ran 5 minutes, so I ripped through Dismantled. And I'm sure that maybe we'll come back for another season. It's Titus Burgess, I think, from Kimmy Schmidt is hosting the show, and basically it feels like Nailed It. It feels like Quibi's answer to Nailed It. Two contestants go into a sealed room and get blasted with a blown-up version of a dish, and they have to, like, kind of taste it, feel it, and kind of then recreate it, guess what the dish is, and recreate it in 30 minutes. It's a pretty neat little idea, but at the same time, it's more because it's so small. Like, I would not watch this show if it was a 30-minute show online or an hour-long show. It wouldn't keep me for that. But the 5-minute, quick bites that Quibi offers kind of worked pretty well for it. It's just not something, again, it's like really stupid. It's a stupid show, but it kind of works. And then it comes down to my recommendation for the week. The film that I've seen in the last week that I think is the best, or the one that I'm going to recommend based on that. This week, I am going to talk about The Circus. And I know this is not a new movie. This is a very, very old movie. This is a 92-year-old movie, one of Charlie Chaplin's films. I recently connected with that one through Criterion. I think you can rent this one on Amazon Prime as well. But basically, he plays his lovable tramp character who ends up being taken in because he's popular at a very struggling circus. And the ringleader wants to get him trained on all these different acts, but really his comedy comes from being himself. And I think that's kind of a funny little note to take in there as well, is that he's being himself. He's just being really silly. And people like him for that. But this ringleader doesn't seem to understand that, and so he's got him doing all these different odd tasks in the circus, and none of them are that, none of them bring in the crowds that just him being goofy is doing. So The Tramp, Charlie Chaplin's The Circus was my recommendation for the week. I really do, if you like, it's a very silent, quiet movie, but it's also very funny, filled with some pretty cool gags and set pieces as well. Particularly the tightrope walk scene at the end is a personal favorite Chaplin moment. So it was really cool to reconnect with that one and watch that just film out of time. The Circus from 1928 is my recommendation for this week. All right, guys, that's about it for us. We'll let you get on back to your lives. I'll get back to mine. So a couple of plugs real quick. If you want to check out my Why I Love Cinema, The Nice Guys is available right now over on Kyle and Nick on Film's YouTube page. I'll leave the link in the description down below so you can find that YouTube page and subscribe there as well. And if you guys like this kind of content, give me a like, drop some comments below all the different stories I've talked about today. I want to hear your thoughts. This is all my favorite thing to do is connect with people and talk about film. I want to hear what you think about these many different